Hello, hello. I want to talk a little bit about responsibility and why it's important to accept responsibility even when it hurts, even when it doesn't feel good. You know, responsibility is this heavy word that has been kind of elevated by individuals like Jordan Peterson, who talk about, take up your cross, or, well, that's more the religious standpoint, but just take up your cross and, fight through whatever it is that you're going through and accept full responsibility. But I don't think a lot of people necessarily embody that full responsibility. And I say a lot of people because generally, when I have conversations with individuals or things that I see either through the popular media or just being in different environments, whether that's academics or, the job, a lot of times the central focus or, elements of their conversation is geared towards blaming somebody or some institution or some, you know, outlying cause that has determined basically why it is that they're experiencing what they're experiencing. This could be blame. This could also be complaining about the certain situations that people find themselves in. And so I think it's really important for self-empowerment and self-strength to adopt responsibility even when it hurts. And so like an example might be, at least in like my case, if I'm struggling to pay the bills, I can't go to other people and complain about the government or complain about like how little amounts of job postings or how low people are paying in this certain profession, because that's not going to do anything besides maybe make me feel better in the moment that somebody else is like, oh yeah, I know it's really tough, it's hard. Instead, if I adopt full responsibility for my financial future and my outcomes, that at least empowers me to show to myself that I have control over this. Nobody else is coming to save me. You know, even if it is difficult, even if those complaints and those blameworthy, pointing my finger, things that I'm doing, even if there's elements of truth to that, it won't help me in any degree other than just me talking, to somebody else. It's better off to have all that energy in a healthy manner of full responsibility, because then you actually get to work. You actually start looking for solutions. You stop, putting it on other people or the environment or the year you were born or your skin color or whatever it might be. And again, I'm not saying that there's not truth to these things that people tend to blame or complain about. There are certainly truths to it. It's kind of like the whole conspiratorial thing. It's like, yeah, maybe there probably are, some of these conspiracies are true, but what's believing in them really going to do for you other than like, I knew it. It's not going to change your life per se. But adopting responsibility may actually change your life, because you'll stop, sifting through all that nonsense of disempowerment and victimhood, and you'll actually begin to take action in the direction of your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. So it does hurt, especially like when it comes to like finances, or if a relationship is broken down because of something you said or because you're not showing up in a particular way. It's easy to put the blame on the other person and say like, oh, well, they don't understand, they don't get me, or they're this X, Y, and Z. Like I knew this guy a long time ago who, I think I went out to a club or something and I said something to somebody, just trying to be friendly. I said like, oh, I like this or I like that, just kind of being friendly. And they kind of like looked at me and they kind of like, oh, get away or something like that. And that happens as a guy, like when you go out, like you're not always going to have just wonderful, joyous experiences with other people. But I was just trying to be social. And I think the person who I was with at the time saw that. And then they were immediately like, oh, this person's a XYZ, like a bad name. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, that's a very simplistic way of summing up everything you just saw. To just immediately, we'll use the word idiot. It was a much harsher word. But if you just, compartmentalize that entire interaction and say, that person's an idiot. Like, you were being nice, you were being kind, you were being social. and they're an idiot for making that face or whatever, that person is not just holistically an idiot. They have lives and or lives beyond that area, and they have friends and family and aspirations, ambitions, and personality, and all these different types of things. But to just sequester them into that little kind of, label based off of an interaction, I mean, that's kind of unfair. And that's kind of like the thought that just went through my mind. I was like, yeah, okay, but that's probably not the case. They probably were just, maybe not having a good day or time, or maybe I came off a little bit strange or something like that, or they just did not want to deal with anybody else, a new person or anybody. And that's probably more realistic of what was going on. But the whole point with that is just to, allude to the fact that, I could sit there and be like, oh, that person, this, that, and the other, or they're this or they're that. Or I can just say like, oh, maybe I came across a certain way, or maybe I should have said this, or maybe, it was not the right time, or maybe I was speaking in a weird way. Whatever it might be, if I put the responsibility on myself for the interactions, I'm more likely to, go into future interactions in a more positive light. I'm in a more learning type zone than when I just, shirk it off as something that, is up to the gods or is up to things that I have no control over. The best thing that you can do to improve your life, or one of the best things, is to assume that you have responsibility so that you can actually make changes. And so that's just a long roundabout way of saying that. But yeah, I know sometimes it's not the best feeling in the world to assume responsibility, like going to a job or raising a family, because it's hard, it's difficult. But when you just accept it and stop blaming and pointing fingers and complaining, you'll find that you are a stronger individual internally, and then it'll manifest itself externally as well. So I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.